You know, Warren Buffett's early partnership letters are legendary, right? But here's the thing, they're not just some dusty old documents from the past. They are a timeless playbook. So today, we're going to crack open his 1958 letter and see exactly how a 28-year-old Buffett navigated a totally wild market and in the process laid down the core rules of value investing that are just as powerful today as they were then.
All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll set the scene. What did the market actually feel like back in 1958? Then we'll dig into Buffett's completely different contrarian approach. After that, we get to the really fun part, a deep dive into a specific bank he invested in. We'll look at the brilliant reason he decided to sell, and then we'll wrap it all up by pulling out 5 timeless lessons you can use.
So let's hop in a time machine and go back to 1958. See, to really get Buffett's genius, you first have to understand the kind of investment world he was up against. Buffett himself described the market as exuberant. And let me tell you, that was not a compliment. What he saw was a market that was just completely driven by emotion. There was this feeling everywhere that making money in stocks was easy, it was fast, people weren't looking at what businesses were actually worth, they were just chasing whatever was hot. And Buffett knew that is a very, very dangerous game to play.
So, while everyone else was caught up in this party, this exuberance, what was Buffett doing? Well, he wasn't even in the same building. He was playing a completely different game by a completely different set of rules.
And this right here just shows you the night and day difference. The market, totally obsessed with predicting what was going to happen next, chasing quick profits, and just following the herd. Buffett, he ignored all of that. His entire focus was on one thing, doing his own research to find individual businesses that were on sale, and then patiently buying them up. It's like, while everyone else was trying to predict the weather, Buffett was quietly and methodically building an ark.
This one sentence, this is the key to everything. It's his whole philosophy in a nutshell. He wasn't trying to be a market guru. He was a business picker. He just flat out believed his job wasn't to guess which way the economy was headed, but to find solid, cheap companies, no matter what the overall market was doing. And that mindset right there is what let him find these incredible gems that everyone else was just walking right past.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in practice? Let's get our hands dirty and look at a real investment that made up a huge chunk of his portfolio that year.
He brings up the Commonwealth Trust Company and calls it a typical situation. This is so classic Buffett. Because for him, typical meant a solid, profitable little bank that the big shot investors on Wall Street had completely forgotten existed. It was boring, and that's exactly what he loved about it.
Now, just get a load of these numbers. This is where it gets really interesting. Buffett was buying up shares for around $51. But when he did his homework, he calculated that the bank was conservatively worth about $125 a share. I mean, that is a massive, massive discount. The bank was earning good money, but here's the catch. It paid 0 dividends. So the get-rich-quick crowd wanted nothing to do with it. And for Buffett, that was like a giant neon sign flashing, buy, buy, buy. He had this simple 3-part checklist for the investment. Number 1, was it safe? Absolutely. A good bank selling for less than half of what it's worth. Number 2, was its value growing? Yep. Every year it was plowing its earnings back into the business, making it worth even more. And number 3, was there a catalyst? He saw a potential merger on the horizon that would basically force the market to wake up and see the bank's true value. It was the perfect setup. So what was his grand, complicated strategy? It was just to be patient. He quietly started buying up shares until he owned 12% of the entire bank. You see, for him, a sleepy, forgotten stock wasn't a problem. It was an advantage. It meant he could build a huge position at a fantastic price without anybody else noticing. He was basically creating his own luck.
All right, let's fast forward to the sale. Because buying a great company cheap is only half the job. Knowing when to sell and, more importantly, why you're selling, well, that's where the real masterclass continues. So, just to remind you, this was his starting point. He patiently bought shares for about $51 on average.
And eventually, he sold his entire position for $80 a share, a really nice 57% gain. So, great story, right? But hold on, it doesn't end there. The reason he sold is probably the most important lesson of all. Okay, so really listen to what he's saying here, because it's so crucial. He didn't sell just because the stock went up. He sold because the deal wasn't as amazing as it used to be. Sure, at $80, it was still a bargain compared to its real value. But the gap had narrowed,
And this is the key. He had found something else where the gap between price and value was even wider.
This decision is a perfect real-world example of a concept called opportunity cost. He wasn't just asking, is Commonwealth still a good investment? He was asking a much tougher question. Is Commonwealth the absolute best place for my capital to be right now? And when the answer became no, he moved on without hesitation to an even better opportunity.
So, what can this incredible story from more than 60 years ago teach us today? Let's boil it all down into a clear, actionable playbook. First, you have to ignore the noise. When the market gets exuberant, that's your cue to be more careful, not to jump in. Second, always demand a huge margin of safety. That means focusing on that gap between the price you pay and the value you get. Third, remember that patience isn't passive. It's a strategic weapon. It lets you wait for the perfect pitch. And finally, the big one. Always, always think in terms of opportunity cost. Your job isn't just to find a good idea. It's to find the absolute best idea available to you at any given moment.
And that leaves us with one last big question. I mean, the words Buffett used to describe the market in 1958 could easily describe parts of the market today, couldn't they? So using this exact playbook, the real challenge for us as investors is to tune out all that noise and ask ourselves, where are the modern-day commonwealths? Where are the boring, forgotten, deeply undervalued opportunities hiding in plain sight right now?